Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to completely break reality. I am absolutely thrilled to take you on a journey down what we're calling the paradox rabbit hole. We're going to be exploring those wild, mind-bending boundaries where human logic, physics, and even our fundamental understanding of the universe just completely break down. So if you've ever felt like the world doesn't quite make sense, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this with a scenario you might actually already know, but one that perfectly illustrates the kind of headache we're about to induce. Imagine Pinocchio, right? The wooden puppet whose nose grows whenever he tells a lie. Now ask yourself, what happens if Pinocchio says, "My nose will grow"? It creates this completely impossible logical dilemma. Think about it. If the statement is true, his nose should grow. But wait, if his nose grows, that means he was telling the truth, and his nose only grows when he lies. On the flip side, if the statement is false, his nose shouldn't grow. But if it doesn't grow, then his original statement was a lie, which means it should grow. It is a total, literal short circuit of logic. There's no way out. So, here's our roadmap for our descent into the rabbit hole today. We're going to start with being trapped in logic and language, then move on to twisting time and space, check out the quirks of human nature, look at bending math in the universe, and wrap up with why paradoxes actually matter. All right, jumping right into section 1, trapped in logic and language. This is where mere words and basic agreements can create completely impossible loops. But real quick, before we go any deeper, let's make sure we're on the same page and define exactly what a paradox actually is. Basically, a paradox is a logical dilemma where the outcomes fundamentally contradict the initial agreement or premise. It's a situation that, based on a totally accepted set of rules, leads to a conclusion that completely defies those exact same rules. And this brilliantly illustrates our first real test, the crocodile paradox. Just imagine this setup. A crocodile steals a child, but the crocodile promises to return the kid if the parent can correctly predict what the crocodile is going to do. So the clever parent looks right at the crocodile and says, "You will not return my child." The crocodile agrees to the terms, but suddenly, boom, a paradox. If the crocodile decides to return the child, it contradicts its promise because the parent's prediction was technically wrong. But if it doesn't return the child, well, the parent's prediction was right, and according to their agreement, the crocodile must return the child. No matter what this crocodile does, it breaks its own rule. It's a total trap. And we can do the exact same thing with just a piece of paper. Imagine you're holding a card. You read the front. The sentence on the back of this card is false. Okay, simple enough, right? You flip it over to read the back. The sentence on the front of this card is true. Wait, if the front is true, the back must be false. But if the back is false, then the front must be false. But if the front is false, the back must be true. You see what happens? You are instantly trapped in an infinite, inescapable logical loop that language, and just language alone, created. But honestly, language is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's move to our second section, twisting time and space, where the actual physical rules of the universe shatter. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how it completely breaks our basic understanding of cause and effect. This is the bootstrap paradox. Imagine you use a time machine to travel back in time. You track down a young Albert Einstein, and you hand him a book containing the theory of relativity. Einstein reads it, totally understands it, and publishes it as his own work. History plays out, the book gets printed, and years later, you buy that very book and take it back in time with you. So, here's the question. Who is the original author of the theory of relativity? Einstein got it from you, but you got it from Einstein. The information just exists without ever actually being created. It's this wild information loop that definitely rivals the classic grandfather paradox. The one where stopping your grandparents from meeting would prevent your birth, meaning you couldn't have traveled back in time to stop them in the first place. So let's see how this kind of thinking builds into real actual physics with the twin paradox. Imagine identical twins at year 0. One boards a spaceship traveling near the speed of light. The other stays right here on Earth. Fast forward to year 50. Decades have passed on Earth, but for the astronaut, time moved drastically slower, meaning they return years younger than their twin. The paradox here, because motion is relative, from the astronaut's perspective, the Earth was actually speeding away from them. So logically, shouldn't the Earth twin be younger? It seems entirely impossible, yet it's a fundamental quirk of our universe that's only resolved when you factor in the physics of acceleration. Let's bring things a little closer to home now. Welcome to Section 3, the quirks of human nature. How do we, as everyday people, act in completely paradoxical ways? Let's consider the paradox of thrift. We are always told that saving our money individually is a smart, responsible thing to do, right? But watch what happens on a macro scale. If every single individual suddenly decides to save more money, overall consumption drops because, well, nobody's buying goods. When nobody buys goods, businesses don't make money, which means economic growth totally halts. Wages drop, people get laid off, and ultimately, everyone ends up poorer. The very act of everyone trying to secure their financial future collectively ruins the economy for the whole shebang. And our weird economic behavior absolutely does not stop there. Consider the value paradox. On one side, we have water. It's absolutely crucial for sustaining human life. Literally, without it, we die. Yet it is incredibly cheap. On the other side, we have diamonds. They are completely non-essential for our survival, purely cosmetic. Yet they are vastly more expensive than water. It's crazy. Our economic systems assign massive monetary value to things we don't even need, while practically giving away the very thing that is keeping us alive. And when we actually go out to spend that money, we run headfirst into the paradox of choice. We naturally assume that having more choices is better. It means freedom, right? Actually, scratch that. Psychological theory proves the exact opposite. Giving shoppers unlimited choices actually causes severe stress, decision paralysis, and overall dissatisfaction. Surprisingly, eliminating consumer choices and giving people fewer options is highly beneficial because it greatly reduces anxiety and leads to much higher satisfaction. Less freedom actually equals more happiness when you're at the store. Who would have thought? Speaking of how bad human intuition can be, let's just look at this number, 23. This represents the famous birthday paradox. If you want a 100% probability that two people in a room share a birthday, you obviously need 366 people to cover every possible day of a leap year. But what if you just want a 50% chance? Our gut intuition says you need about half of 365, so maybe around 180 people. Well, the math says otherwise. Because we are comparing every single person against every other person in the room, the combinations compound incredibly rapidly. You literally only need 23 people in a room to guarantee a 50% chance that two of them share a birthday. All right, if you thought our psychology was weird, just wait until we look at the fabric of reality itself. Moving into Section 4, Bending Math and the Universe. Let's tackle one of the absolute most famous brain breakers out there, Schrödinger's cat. In quantum theory, a particle isn't just locked into one state. When it's not being observed, it exists in multiple states simultaneously, a weird condition called superposition. Now let's hypothetically put a machine inside a box that releases poison only if the particle is in state A and does nothing at all if it's in state B. We put a cat in that box and close the lid. Because the particle is in superposition until observed, the machine is simultaneously releasing and not releasing the poison. That means, as far as the universe is concerned, until we open that box and look, the cat is both alive and dead at the exact same time. And hey, if quantum mechanics doesn't give you an existential crisis, the Boltzmann brain definitely will. In physics, order arising from chaos is incredibly rare. The fact that our massive, highly structured universe formed out of absolutely nothing is statistically almost impossible. In fact, mathematically speaking, it is vastly more likely for a single, isolated human brain to just spontaneously form in an empty void, complete with artificial memories of having lived a whole life, than for the entire complex universe to actually come into existence. Which means, statistically, you might just be a floating brain in a void hallucinating this entire explainer right now. How's that for a thought? Okay. Welcome back to reality. Well, hopefully. Let's head into our final section, Section 5, Why Paradoxes Actually Matter. Because these aren't just fun little thought experiments. They can actually dictate our survival. And the crucial point is perfectly demonstrated by the tolerance paradox. We all value a tolerant society, right? But if a society grants unlimited tolerance to absolutely everything, it must therefore allow intolerance to exist. If intolerance is allowed to exist and speak freely, it grows unchecked and eventually takes over. Ultimately, the tolerant society is destroyed by the very intolerance it tolerated in the first place. Therefore, to maintain a tolerant society, it paradoxically must not tolerate intolerance. It's a totally vital framework for understanding how to protect our modern democratic societies. And finally, we arrive at the Fermi Paradox, which looks out into the stars. We know the universe is virtually infinite, incredibly old, and teeming with billions of planets just like ours. Statistically, advanced alien civilizations should be everywhere. Yet, we look up, we listen, and we hear absolutely nothing. Just silence. So if the universe is infinite and completely ripe for life, why haven't we seen any aliens? It's a paradox that forces us to really question our place in the cosmos. Are we early? Are we completely alone? Or is there some great flitter out there wiping out civilizations before they can reach us? I'll leave you to ponder that the next time you gaze up at the night sky.